MPs have started clearing their Commons desks, either because they're leaving the Commons for good or to get back to their constituencies to campaign. In the last session of Prime Minister's Questions, the party leaders set out their battle lines, and our political editor, Gary Gibbon, is with me. Gary.
As you said, campaign attack lines are being trialled, and a lot of them are the ones you'd expect on the economy, on the NHS, but already, I'm afraid, brace yourself, the saga of how the debates will actually be fashioned, whether Boris Johnson will actually stand on a debate stage with Joe Swinson or anyone else who isn't Jeremy Corbyn. Brace yourself for quite a bit more of that. Also today we had a rather brutal saga, brutal HR saga, really, in the Tory party. We were talking yesterday about how the Tories were managing the sheep and the goats, which people would be allowed back into the fold of the people that they'd thrown out of the Tory party for indiscipline over the way they'd voted to stop No Deal and other votes. Today, Amber Rudd, the former Work and Pensions Secretary, came on the screens and said, well, actually, I think I had a chat with the Prime Minister and I think I've got my whip back. I'm going to be a Conservative again, only for the Chief Whip to send her a letter saying, forget it. We also had today, very importantly, the extension, the delay to Brexit enshrined in British law. Labour is hoping that it can weaponise that in the campaign and say you can't trust Boris Johnson. He's obviously going to be trying to weaponise it and say you can't trust the Labour Party. They're the people who forced this whole thing upon me. Finally, the thing that we all have our eyes on, the numbers. The psephologists have been crawling out of their laboratories, crawling over the numbers. And what they're all saying, almost a man and a woman that I've spoken to, is in order to get a majority, some of the numbers that Boris Johnson is going to have to get, the Labour majorities he's going to have to overturn, are on a scale equivalent to the Blair Labour landslide of 1997. Quite an extraordinary thought as we make our first tentative steps into this election. Across Parliament, MPs are packing up their offices. Antoinette Sandbach could be back after the election. She's now running as an independent, having lost the Tory whip for her attempts to stop a no-deal Brexit. The idea of the Tories running against Parliament, how does that leave you feeling?
Well, I think, frankly, I think that's shameful. People will see beyond the Cummings playbook where, you know, he's trying to set up a division where there is none.
He's not buying that, as he showed at the final question time before the election.
The time for protest is over, Mr. Speaker. It's time for leadership, and that is what this government provides.
Mr. Speaker, coming from a Prime Minister who withdrew his own bill, it seems a bit odd.
Jeremy Corbyn's first campaign visit was to a hospital in Crawley. Labour will proclaim itself the only true defender of the NHS in this election. Boris Johnson hopes his own hospital visits and promises of cash can challenge that.
He claims, Mr. Speaker, the NHS is safe in his hands. Why then has NHS privatisation doubled under this government, with nearly £10 billion being spent on private companies within our NHS?
If we come back as the next government, we will invest massively in that NHS and take it forward with the funds that we will make available from a strong and growing economy. And the reality is that he would wreck that economy.
Outside Westminster, a rare silent standoff. Around the corner, a pro-Remain campaign launched a seat-by-seat tactical voting website. Their opinion poll suggested if Remain supporters don't vote tactically, Boris Johnson could get a 40-seat majority.
If we can get 30% of pro-Remain voters to hold their nose and vote for a party they don't normally vote for in their seat to stop the Conservatives or Brexit Party, we get over that golden 320 figure to be able to form a government.
Joe Swinson later posed with Lib Dem MPs to mark the start of her campaign.
Make no mistake, I stand here ready to take on Boris Johnson and Jeremy Corbyn as candidates to be Prime Minister.
So there was a launch of a tactical voting website this morning. Can you give a hint, maybe a wink towards supporters that maybe they should delve into that, have a look at that?
So there may well be a small number of seats where there may be arrangements that are agreed, such as what happened in Brecon and Radnorshire, which resulted in the election of a fantastic Remain MP in Jane Dodds. So we will of course look to work with other parties that also want to stop Brexit.
Many Tory MPs are worried that the squeeze from the Lib Dems and the Brexit Party could make it hard for their leader to get the sort of majority some polls predict.
Conservatives might win that majority of 30. I think my colleagues and a lot of our activists are more concerned that we end up with a parliament looking remarkably like the one we've got at present.
Then what?
Well, in which case, I mean, Boris, I suppose, could stand down, go back to the Daily Telegraph and earn more money.
Another election, a referendum?
You could have another election. I mean, he certainly put his face against another referendum, but then he was going to die in a ditch over the 31st of October.
You wouldn't rule anything out?
No.
I think there will be, an interesting parliament that comes back.
But it could be another hung parliament, gridlock, another no-deal cliff edge.
In which case, what I've been arguing all along for a confirmatory referendum
Comes back into play.
Kenneth Clarke is one of scores of MPs who've announced they are standing down. The Speaker, himself leaving the Commons, paid tribute.
Right Honourable and learned gentleman is one of the most popular and respected politicians in our country. For his service to this place, for his service to his constituents and for his service to our country, he deserves the warmest appreciation.
49 years a Tory MP. In strange times, he leaves the Commons, like others, with that label snatched from him.
Now, fans of Boris Johnson like to think of him as the Conservative who can reach parts of the electorate other Tories can't. And that belief seems the basis of the Conservative election strategy, hoping to offset likely losses in Scotland and other Remain voting areas by winning seats in former Labour heartlands. Our North of England correspondent Claire Fallon has been to Warrington to see if the Prime Minister can really break through where others have failed.
Take one northern town, add a strategy for turning Labour voters Tory, and our search for Workington Man is on. Except we're in Warrington, but it could be Castleford or Wigan or pretty much any northern town with a rugby league side. Are you Workington Man?
I am. I'm from Workington, actually.
You're from Workington? And yes, we found the one man from Workington in Warrington. Apparently it's men like Leonard who are the secret to a Tory election win and solving Brexit. Apparently.
Do you like rugby league?
Correct.
Do you like Brexit?
I voted for Brexit, but not a drive off the cliff.
Do you like Jeremy Corbyn?
I'm a Labour man, but I don't really like Jeremy Corbyn.
You are Workington Man. Will you vote for Boris Johnson?
Oh, never.
Who are you going to vote for?
Labour.
Perhaps Workington Man isn't the secret to election success after all. So what about Warrington Woman? Patricia, perhaps?
At the moment, I'm in the middle, yeah.
She used to vote Labour. In the referendum, she voted Leave. She's just what Boris Johnson's looking for. Except in December, she'll likely go Green.
But I don't want to feel that I'm a traitor. You know, because, I mean, this was over 3 years ago I voted, and I still, as I'm saying, still believe in it, but you know, it's really important with the climate change.
So for you, this election is not all about Brexit?
No, it's about lots of things.
And there's the hitch. People like Patricia and Leonard don't quite fit in simple northern Leave land boxes. But all the same, this seat, Warrington South, which was split pretty much straight down the middle in the referendum, will be one of the crucial battlegrounds over the next few weeks.
General election in December. Are you excited for it?
Yeah. And then there's John and Sue, who hope and believe an election will end the endless Brexit merry-go-round.
The Conservatives are doing the best
to try and get it through.
To try and get the will of the people through. But they haven't got a majority, they've got a minus majority.
Who do you normally vote for?
I vote Liberal Democrats, but I won't again.
No.
Really?
Yeah, I won't,
most.
definitely. We just seem to be, we've had 3 years now of being stuck, and we've got the rest of the country to think about, like the NHS and schools and police. Nothing seems to be getting done apart from spending all the time on Brexit.
From Brexity Lib Dems to Boris backing Labour voters and Europhobic Greens. Winning the election, solving Brexit, dealing with the divisions might just be about more than wooing some bloke from Workington or Wakefield or Warrington.
And a little bit of breaking news. We've just heard that Nicky Morgan, the Culture Secretary, is standing down as an MP, and she's citing the abuse she has received and the impact on her family of being in politics. Joining me now is the Conservative MP Victoria Prentice and her former colleague, now a Lib Dem MP, Sam Gyimah. I mean, a lot of people are saying that this shows, the number of people stepping down shows that, you know, politics is broken. Exactly the reason Boris Johnson called this election was because this parliament was dead. I mean, was this parliament really broken? Had it really run its course, or had things just got a bit tough?
I think this parliament was been alive and kicking. The public voted for a hung parliament, and by definition, a hung parliament can't get anything through. But not only that, Brexit has ushered in a sea change in politics. It's redefined where people stand on the political spectrum. The country is divided and Parliament is divided. We can't expect Parliament to be less divided than the country that it represents. But for all of us MPs, it's also shaking our relationship with our parties and force some clearly to evaluate whether or not, given the highly charged atmosphere that politics now is, they want to continue.
You're not a little nervous about going back to the electorate and saying, oh, we know you voted in 2017 and 2015, we're asking you again? You know, it's a bit like saying, you know, we didn't like what you said last time, could you vote again?
I think it's grim for the general public. What I get on the doorstep is that people are not just fed up with politics, but they're also quite anxious and worried about the future. So I, for one, I really sympathise with that feeling. We've been in limbo for a long time since the referendum now, and it's not a nice feeling for anybody. So I do have sympathy with the Prime Minister for wanting to call an election to seek to gain a majority, which means he can get
But didn't
Brexit
he wreck Parliament? You know, if Parliament is broken, he broke it.
No,
he got rid of his majority, he behaved like a hooligan, he broke all the rules.
I would never accept that Parliament is broken. I agree with Sam, unfashionable as that may be on your programme. But I do think that Brexit is a spectrum that we're all on. As Sam said, we all feel slightly different things about it at slightly different times. And I think Parliament is actually very representative of a divided nation. What we've got to do now is make sure that we get a big enough majority to actually get Brexit done and bring some unity to the nation and move on.
The idea that Parliament is broken, which the Prime Minister has put out there, is because he wants to fight an election in which it is him against Parliament. But the truth is, you can't fight an election saying Parliament is broken, while at the same time you need Parliament to get your business through.
Yeah, you and other Lib Dem candidates now are going to be fighting in extraordinary circumstances, seeking to go from third to first. Why on earth do you think that's possible? I mean, you know, the Conservatives have got weird, you know, tasks as well, you know, trying to turn Labour seats Conservative. In your seat, you're trying to come from third to first.
Well, we did that in the European elections. We came first by a country mile in the European elections. But the country is divided and more people are defining themselves now by their Brexit voting identity, whether it's Leave or Remain, than the old left, right, Labour, Conservative. And the Liberal Democrats are very clear in their position. We want to remain in the EU. This election is a democratic opportunity for people to choose us, because the only way to end this is, as we know after 3 years, is that our current deal is the best deal.
Are you at all worried that you've miscalculated, that this is a really tall order?
Well, elections are always a risk. Of course they are, because events happen and campaigns misfire. We saw that to a certain extent last time, though we did come back as the largest party. But I am confident. We know that the Prime Minister is a very, very strong campaigner. The Boris bounce is certainly real in the polls. I do get people locally telling me that they believe that he will get it done and then we can move on, and that is a strong message.
We'll come back to this many times, I'm sure.
We've been here before,
Thank
is
you.
what I would say.
Thank you very much indeed, both of you.